All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're going to be taking a look at a chapter from Lewis Robinson's book,
Yep.
Conspiracy Theories, or, spoiler alerts, the UAP Files. Have you had a chance to...
I have, yeah. It's a fascinating read.
Yeah, we're going to be focusing on Chapter 4 specifically,
Right.
Ancient Visitors and UAPs.
Yeah.
And so basically what we're going to be exploring is this whole idea that UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, might have actually been around for a lot longer than we think.
A lot longer.
And might have even played a role in shaping, some
Yeah.
of those ancient civilizations.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so captivating about this chapter, right? It takes something we often associate with modern times, this whole UAP thing.
Right.
And pushes it way back, thousands of years potentially.
Thousands of years, exactly.
And it asks us to consider, what if these ancient civilizations weren't as isolated as we tend to think?
Yeah, it really makes you look at those classic images of pyramids and Stonehenge and all those
Absolutely.
the structures.
I mean, think about the pyramids, right?
Yeah.
Even today, with all our technology,
Yeah.
the scale of that project is just mind-boggling.
It's amazing.
The precision, the engineering,
How did they even...
we know a lot about how they did it, of course, the quarrying, the ramps, the
Right.
sheer manpower involved.
But still, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It is, and there are certain aspects that remain, well, let's just say they raise questions.
Oh, yeah.
Like the alignment to true north.
Yeah.
The accuracy is incredible.
Possibly accurate, almost.
The most, and to achieve that with the tools they supposedly had, I mean, it's not impossible, but
It makes you wonder.
it does. And Robinson really leans into that wonder, He's like, hey, what if there's more to the story?
Yeah.
What if UAPs with their potentially advanced tech were somehow involved?
Like offering guidance or even...
Maybe. Or maybe even something more direct.
It's a wild thought, but...
It is, but it's a thought that has a certain allure, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And mainstream archaeology might shy away from these ideas.
Right.
But Robinson, he's not afraid to push the boundaries a little.
Yeah, he's like, let's entertain the possibility.
Exactly. He's like,
Yeah.
look at the scale of these ancient projects, the complexity.
Yeah.
Does it all really add up just with the knowledge and tools we assume they had?
Or is there something else going on?
Exactly.
It's like a missing piece of the puzzle.
Maybe.
So it's not just the structures, though, right?
No.
Robinson, he dives into the mythology, too.
Oh, yeah.
All those stories about gods coming down from the sky.
It's a common theme, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just one culture.
No, it's everywhere.
You see it in Egypt, Mesoamerica, India, China.
Like, it's this global pattern.
Yeah, like a shared human experience almost.
Yeah. Right, these beings coming down, bringing knowledge, technology, sometimes even helping establish these societies.
Yeah, and so Robinson's like, what if these myths, these stories,
Yeah.
what if they're not just, made up stories?
Mm-hmm.
What if they're actually like ancient people trying to explain something they just didn't have the words for?
Like, imagine seeing something in the sky thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Something so advanced, so beyond your comprehension. What would you call it?
Oh, God.
Exactly. It's the most logical explanation given their worldview.
Makes sense.
And Robinson doesn't stop there.
No.
He takes it further. He's like, okay, so maybe these myths are based on real encounters.
Yeah.
But what if these encounters actually influence these ancient civilizations?
Like their technology, their development.
Or what if UAPs weren't just observers, but active participants in our history?
No, that's a mind-blowing thought.
It is, and that's where the concept of vimanas comes into play.
Vimanas, yeah, I heard of those, but I honestly don't know much about them.
So vimanas are they're described in ancient Indian texts as these flying chariots.
Oh, okay, so like mythological vehicles.
They're often associated with gods and celestial beings, yes.
Okay.
But the descriptions, they're surprisingly detailed, especially in the Vaimanika Shastra.
The what?
The Vaimanika Shastra. It's an ancient text that goes into the mechanics of Vimanas.
Really? Like blueprints?
Not blueprints exactly, but it describes different types, their capabilities, their propulsion systems.
Like an ancient aircraft manual or something?
Kind of, yeah, it's fascinating.
So we've got these ancient structures that seem impossible, myths about sky beings with advanced tech, and now these vimanas.
It's a lot to take in, I know.
It really is, and Robinson's suggesting it's all connected.
He's suggesting there might be a connection, yes.
Wow, so like ancient descriptions of UAPs, basically.
Potentially, yeah.
That's wild. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork here.
We have.
But let's break down these vimanas a bit more. What exactly are they, and what makes them so important in this whole UAP discussion?
All right, let's dive in.
Awesome. I think when we hear vimana, most of us probably picture, I don't know, like a chariot of the gods kind of thing.
Right, like something very ornate, maybe pulled by mythical creatures.
Exactly. So are we even close?
Well, there's definitely a mythical aspect to them for sure, but the descriptions, they go beyond just, pretty imagery.
Okay.
The texts, especially this one called the Vaimanika Shastra, it gets into the mechanics of vimanas
Okay.
in surprising detail.
Like how detailed are we talking?
Well, for example, they describe different types of vimanas, each with specific purposes, almost like
Like category?
yeah, like an ancient classification system for aircraft.
Wow, so it's not just one type of vimana, there's like a whole...
A whole variety, yeah, each
Yeah.
designed for different tasks, different capabilities.
That's fascinating. So what kind of details do they actually give? Like, give me an example.
Okay, so some texts describe vimanas powered by this liquid fire.
Liquid fire.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But some researchers think it could refer to mercury vortex engines.
Whoa, wait, like a real type of engine?
Yeah, it's a concept that modern science has actually explored for advanced propulsion.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So they weren't just making stuff up, these ancient texts.
Well, that's the debate, isn't it? But the descriptions, they get into the metals used, the alloys, some of which we know have, unique properties that could be relevant to aerospace.
So they're not just vague descriptions,
They're specific, yeah, and that's what's so interesting when you look at it through the lens of UAP studies,
Yeah.
Some researchers believe that these ancient descriptions, even though they're wrapped in this mythological language,
Right.
they might actually be attempts to document encounters with technology that they just couldn't fully grasp.
Like they were trying to explain something they had never seen before.
Exactly. They were trying to make sense of something extraordinary with the language and concepts they had available.
It's like, imagine trying to explain a smartphone to someone living 5,000 years ago.
Right. It would be almost impossible.
You'd probably end up describing it as some kind of magic mirror or something.
Exactly.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
Couldn't you say that these vimana descriptions are just, I don't know, imaginative storytelling? I mean, ancient cultures were known for their myths and legends.
Oh, absolutely. And healthy skepticism is always important. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
These descriptions, as fantastical as they might seem, sometimes align with principles of aerodynamics and propulsion that we're only beginning to understand today.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
That's a pretty big coincidence.
It is, and it makes you wonder, right?
It does, yeah.
Like, what if they weren't just imagining things? What if they had actually seen something that inspired these ideas?
Okay, that's a good point.
And that's why the study of vimanas is so relevant to the whole UAP discussion.
Okay, I see that.
It challenges us to look at these ancient texts not just as sources of myth and folklore, but as potential repositories of scientific and technological knowledge that might have been lost or misinterpreted over time.
So, like, hidden clues from the past.
Maybe.
Now, going back to those global myths we talked about earlier, the ones about sky beings visiting Earth,
Yeah,
could those stories also be linked to these vimanas?
absolutely. In many of those myths, those sky beings arrive in flying chariots or celestial vehicles.
What?
And the descriptions, they often sound a lot like the vimanas described in the Indian texts.
So it's like we see this similar theme popping up in different cultures all over the world.
Exactly. And that convergence, it adds another layer of intrigue to this whole theory.
Okay, so we've got ancient structures that seem impossible, myths about sky beings with advanced tech, and now these detailed descriptions of vimanas that sound kind of like modern UAP reports.
It's a lot to take in, I know.
It really is. So is Robinson saying that all of these things, are they all connected?
That's the core of his argument, yeah.
Wow.
He's suggesting that these seemingly disparate elements, the archaeological mysteries, the mythological narratives, the ancient tech,
Yeah.
they might all be pieces of a bigger puzzle.
A puzzle that points to
A potential interaction between ancient civilizations and something beyond our current understanding.
like UAPs.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say, just for argument's sake, that there's some truth to this theory. What would that mean for our understanding of history? Like, would we have to rewrite the textbooks?
Well, it would definitely challenge a lot of our assumptions about how human civilization developed.
Like, how so?
Well, if ancient cultures were influenced by UAPs, it suggests that our technological progress might not have been entirely linear or independent.
You're saying we might have had help.
Maybe a little nudge in the right direction here and there.
Whoa, that's a huge idea.
It is. It implies that we're not alone, and maybe even more importantly, that we haven't been alone throughout our history.
That's a pretty humbling thought.
It is. It really forces us to rethink our place in the cosmos,
Like we're not the center of everything.
Maybe not. Maybe our story is more interconnected with the universe than we ever imagined.
Wow, that's a lot to process.
It is. It challenges our whole anthropocentric worldview.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know.
Exactly. And that's where the real significance of this whole theory lies, I think.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's about opening our minds to new possibilities, even if they seem, a little out there at first.
Right.
It's about acknowledging that there might be gaps in our knowledge, things we haven't even considered yet.
Like, our history might be a lot more complex than we thought.
Exactly. And maybe a lot more exciting.
Yeah, that's for sure. Listening to all this, I can't help but think about those who just dismiss these ideas out of hand.
Oh, yeah, the skeptics.
Yeah, the people who say it's all just fantasy or science fiction.
It's understandable, right? It's a big ask to believe in something that sounds so incredible.
It is. So what would you say to those skeptics? Like, what evidence would you point to as being the most compelling?
Yeah, it's like, where's the proof? Like, where's the undeniable evidence that ancient civilizations had contact with, with aliens or UAPs or whatever you want to call them?
Right. Everyone wants that smoking gun.
Exactly, like a crashed spaceship or something.
Yeah, but that's the challenge with this kind of exploration. We're dealing with interpretations of ancient texts, analyses of archaeological sites, piecing together these patterns from all over the world.
Right.
It's not like there's this one definitive piece of evidence just sitting there waiting to be found.
So you're saying it's more about connecting the dots than finding that one aha moment.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our current understanding of history, it's not complete.
Right.
There could be gaps, things we haven't discovered yet, or maybe even things we haven't even considered.
That's a good point, but I can see how, for someone who's hearing all this for the first time, it might still feel like a big leap to make.
Sure. So where would you suggest someone start if they wanted to, dig into this a little deeper?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say check out Robinson's book, the one we've been discussing.
Yeah, conspiracy theories or spoiler alerts.
Exactly. He presents a lot of compelling arguments, and he backs them up with a ton of sources.
Okay, that's a good starting point. But what about beyond the book? Are there, websites or research groups that focus on this kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. There are a bunch of organizations and researchers dedicated to studying UAPs and their potential connection to ancient history.
Okay. Any names come to mind?
Yeah. For example, there's the Ancient Astronaut Society.
Oh, yeah. I think I've heard of them.
They've been exploring these ideas for decades.
They're the ones behind that TV show, right?
That's right. And while their approach might be a bit more,
sensationalized?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
For TV, yeah.
Right. But they do bring up some interesting points and evidence that's worth considering.
Okay, so we've got books, research groups, TV shows. It seems like there's a whole world of information out there for people to explore.
There really is.
But let's bring it back to the core question here. Why should any of this matter to the average person? What's the takeaway beyond just the wow factor of ancient aliens?
That's a great question. And I think at its heart, this exploration is about expanding our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe,
Yeah.
It's about questioning the narratives we've been given and being open to alternative possibilities, even if they seem, a little out there at first.
It's like looking at the world with fresh eyes.
Exactly. It's about challenging our assumptions and realizing that we might not have all the answers.
And maybe that's the most important lesson of all, right?
I think so.
Being willing to admit that we don't know everything.
Yeah, to embrace that uncertainty, that mystery.
Because who knows what we might discover if we keep an open mind.
Exactly. The universe is full of surprises.
That's for sure. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, to say the least.
It has.
I've learned a lot, and I hope our listeners have too.
Me too.
So, to everyone listening, keep those minds open, keep asking those questions, and keep looking up at the sky. You never know what you might find.
Well said.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to make you think. Until then, happy exploring.
I'm so far away from you. Got to get away from you. We could live forever. Learn how to fly. If we could just find a way. wish up the sky. If we go away, if we just fly away, we could live for forever.